Sales is about the transfer of enthusiasm. If you believe in what you sell, that's why I think the number one thing you need to be successful in sales is a belief in what you do. If you do not believe in what you do, go find something else to do, because you are the ones that are giving all sales reps a bad name if you're just in it for a commission check. But once you believe, it's about transferring that enthusiasm. You can feel that. You can feel that in a message. You can feel that in an email. You could write the most personalized AI email in the world. I can still tell. Well, the only thing I say is that there's something about it that doesn't have a soul. Those AI videos last night didn't have a soul.
Hey everyone, it's Tamara Thompson with Broadcast Your Authority, and I'm here with my co-host Danielle.
Hey everybody.
And I'm super excited for my next guest, who's actually visiting from over the New England area. We just
already striking that nerve.
Yeah, I've already started off. No. But John Barrows from JB Sales is here with us today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me in. I appreciate it.
I always have to tease people because my brother lives over in the New England area too. So we were like writing him yesterday. We're like, who are you going for? Yeah. But then again, he was born in Seattle with me, so it was
okay. So he's probably conflicted maybe a little bit, but yeah, no, it's a little rough morning for New England.
At least you got your Dunkin' Donuts.
Yes, I still got my Dunks. I think that was the best commercial of all the Super Bowl, so I'll take that one too.
I think so.
They were actually terrible commercials. I don't know if you watched them. They were
I liked the State Farm one though.
There was one, the first one that came on, like the State Farm one. I didn't watch the majority of it. This halftime show, I kind of was watching on the side. I was like, I'm just watching all their opinions online. But I think it's interesting if you topic of sales and basically Super Bowl commercials. I feel like there was an era that Super Bowl commercials were really cool and everyone just wanted to go out and buy Doritos and it was a great sales pitch. Yeah. And then these days I'm like, what was that? It was super long. And then it was just I didn't even know it was for that brand. What is that brand? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
It actually, what bothers me most is the AI component of it now. And I think we can get into that. And if you want to talk to that
totally. Let's dive in.
It was my whole thing with AI is if I know it's AI, then I'm okay with it, right? Because I'm like, okay, cool. I'm interested in what it can do. But if it's humans pretending, or it's AI pretending to be humans, and because I live in the tech world, I see AI all the time.
Yeah.
And so I questioned almost every commercial yesterday. I'm like, I don't think those are real actors. I'm like, I actually don't think that's the actual actor. I think it's their likeness. But it just felt fake. And to me, as soon as something feels fake, it's I don't care what the message is. Like a buddy of mine was like, I don't care because the message was a positive one. So whether it was a real human or not, I'm like, I don't know. Actually, I lose the message if there's a lack of authenticity to it, or if there's a fakeness to it. And that's what's really kind of that's where I'm at with this AI stuff right now. It's we're in this weird space where nobody can tell.
We get targeted for these ads, right? Yeah. They're like, get your AI sales agent today, right? So it's I understand the efficiency side of AI tools, agents, booking, different things like that. Yeah. Or the side I've seen and heard the ones that call you they're like, I'm not real, but hey, would you like to schedule your next appointment? They go through this process. Yeah. What are your thoughts about that?
I think when it comes to, again, like I said, if I know it's AI, I'm fine. But I get those calls too when they pretend they're not.
Yeah.
Hey, John. I'm like, hey, what's up? Hi, how are you? Right. And then it goes, and I'm like, and these days I know, so I'll be like, please stop with the AI stuff. Okay. And then it goes back into its pitch. You know what I mean? And it still pretends. But for instance, inbound from a sales standpoint, I'd actually rather deal with an AI bot. Because the AI bots have far more knowledge than any individual 22, 25-year-old sales rep could ever have. They'll be able to answer any question that I have. That's where, for me, a lot of people are talking about this AI stuff and being afraid that it's going to take over sales professionals, all these, automation tools. I'm actually not worried about the automation tools taking over sales. I'm worried more about when the client wakes up and they realize they don't need us anymore. And that to me is not just sales, that's I think across the board. And the example I use on this is my daughter, who's 15 now, her stomach turned about 6 months ago. She just all of a sudden had really bad gut health issues, right?
Interesting.
And so, we talk doctors and blood work and, you go to doctors to talk over your head and everything. So I created my own little custom GPT and said, act as a GI specialist, the best GI specialist in the world for a 15-year-old girl. And I took every blood test, put it in there. I transcribed every conversation I had with every doctor, put it in there. Every conversation I had with a person, put it. Long story short, so I'm learning, right? I'm not looking at for the answers. I know it lies and everything, but when you use it the right way to pique curiosity, to research, that type of thing. If you look for the answer, I think it's a dangerous thing. But if you look for it to like curiosity, and it's a superpower. And so we went to meet with this GI specialist, or this, a nutritionist and a GI specialist. And a nutritionist said, hey, give me a 2-page document that summarizes what my daughter's been going through for the past few months that a GI specialist or that a nutritionist would need to know. And give me 10 questions to come out of there with a plan. And we went in and the woman was like, so tell me what's been going on. I'm like, can you please not ask a 15-year-old girl what's been going on with her stomach? She's going to say every time she eats something, it hurts. Okay. I go, please read this. And she read it and she's like, wow, this is incredible. I go, I know. I go, now I got some questions for you. And I asked her, and she talked in circles for like 30, 45 minutes. And I didn't want to be rude. And so I about 30 and 40 minutes. And I said, I'm sorry, I got to interrupt. I'm actually more confused now than I was walking in.
ChatGPT.
Right? Well, before, my goal was to learn a little bit with ChatGPT and come to an expert like you who's been in the field for years so we can walk out with a plan. Are we going to get there? And she was like, well, and she kept talking in circles. And I was like, okay, so, sorry, hard stop, got to go. And I looked at my insurance bill. It was $500 to have that meeting. It took me 4 weeks to schedule, and it took 3 hours out of my life and my daughter's life. And I walked out of there more confused than I was walking in. Then with the doctor, GI specialist did the same thing. And I had a little bit more confidence because he was like, oh, no, this totally makes sense. I understand. But then there was this one thing that I had heard about SIBO, and it had all like the same symptoms, SIBO. I was like, hey, what about SIBO? He goes, oh yeah, I see that, but we're going to wait. So long story short, he takes her through 15 other tests, and I keep asking, SIBO, what about SIBO? And finally I looked at the test. I was like, give her a SIBO test. 4 months later, he gave her a SIBO test. And guess what?
Goodness.
It was SIBO.
And that was what it was.
And you know what the cure for SIBO is? It's a 14-day antibiotic.
Oh my goodness.
So my daughter sat through 5 months of agony. And I diagnosed this 5 minutes with ChatGPT creating this. And I bring that to every profession. These days, we hear in sales about, by the time somebody comes to us, they're already 60 to 70% of the way through the sales process, and they've already done their, that's fine for an inbound, somebody who's done their homework and is like, I need this, let me talk to somebody. So yeah, you better show up. Like that's why inbound I think is really important when it comes to AI.
Yeah.
But outbound, like when you're calling, trying to create that opportunity, they're not 60, you're creating the opportunity, but now they can be. Because 5 minutes before any conversation with anybody, you can get on and say, tell me what I need to know about this company. What should I ask this sales rep? How much should I, how does this fit into my strategy?
Exactly.
And boom. So I think, again, when used the right way in an authentic, partner way, great. But when used as an answer engine or as to pretend like it's human, I think it's a fool's errand. And I think it's putting us all in a very complicated situation.
I agree, because there's been certain scenarios where, we come in with Broadcast Your Authority, we have a content marketing agency, right? So our goal is to leverage AI for the efficiency, right? But we have humans that oversee things, right? Because there's still AI error, there's human error too, but we have that efficiency aspect of it. But through the sales process, a lot of times, even if someone's talking to myself, a lot of times people are they're just in because I'm a human and I'm passionate about something. Not everybody's always passionate about something. They're maybe you have a sales team that's just very, very eager to do on the sales side of it. But I know the ins and outs of the company, right? So that always helps on the sales conversion piece of it. But on the AI side of it, I think people get a little too much drawn into AI, because we've seen people come in and we're like, well, we leverage AI to do this, but they also coming in as a client, sometimes they'll be like, well, I want to know everything. I want to know what's going on. And I'm like, the whole goal is to have a seamless process where you don't need to know everything. Right. We have a one-stop shop done for you aspect. And that's what we share in the sales process too. It's we don't want you to get stuck in the weeds and do this stuff. And, people will get in their own way, basically, if they're like, oh, well, I just use ChatGPT to say, this is the best way to do this for the podcast. And I'm like, okay, but they aren't also taking into these things and these tools and resources accountable of what we're actually doing here for SEO and YouTube. YouTube's different than audio podcast, different micro content's different for TikTok versus Reels on Instagram and YouTube Shorts. It's all different. I mean, they work all together, but I think people just go in there and then they get stuck. And I'm like, why are you focusing on this? Because you should be focusing on sales, or having sales for your company. And so I think AI is a very strong asset to have, but I think it definitely gets misconstrued in different ways.
We've gone from a search engine to an answer engine, and that's a dangerous thing.
Yes.
Look, for those of us, we could all argue that Google told us whatever it felt like telling us, right?
For years, I'm always telling her, I'm like, just Google it.
Right? But
I'm like, just ChatGPT it.
Well, the difference is at least Google, like you had to choose. There was and it was a perception of choice, right? Whether it was or not, it didn't matter. You had to maybe, and heaven forbid, read an article or two, right? To come up with your own opinion.
I know that you love to read too.
Yeah. And so, but now you put it into ChatGPT and it gives you the ansher. And that's a dangerous thing. Now,
especially
again,
if it's the wrong answer.
Well, and it can't be right, by the way. It can't be right. The 30% of the content that ChatGPT pulls from is Reddit. Have you been on Reddit recently? Like that's where it's pulling its information from. And by the way, 30% of from what I understand, 30% of the content that is on the internet right now is AI generated. So it's a degraded version of the human version of it. So it's just getting worse. So if you look at it to the answer, if you look at curiosity, give me a different perspective on this, tell me why I'm wrong, those type of things, absolutely fantastic. But unfortunately, for the vast majority of people who are just lazy, they're going to copy, paste. And in that scenario, I just don't understand the value of the human. Gary Vaynerchuk, I'm sure you know. I went to his 4D session a while back in 2017, where you can sit down in his office and all his best, you and 10 other entrepreneurs can come in, and all his executives come in and talk about what they're doing with the best brands in the world. And then he comes in at the end and does a Q&A. And I had just seen an AI bot, a couple of reps who left Salesforce. So I trained every rep at Salesforce.com from 2010 to 2018.
Nice.
That's great.
And it was about like prospecting and high quality stuff. And a couple of the reps had left Salesforce, and they created an AI bot back in 2017 before I even knew what it was about on my email. And they're like, John, we created a super hyper personalized AI bot. It creates super hyper personalized emails in a fraction of a second. It's based off of your approach, and I want to show it to you. And I was like, please. I'm like, great, yeah, sure. How good this? What they sent me blew my mind. I was like, wait, whoa, what? I was like, there's no human involvement in writing this? And they're like, no human involvement other than picking the article to use from our app. And by the way, it took 20 seconds to write. I was like, holy. So I was panicking because this is what I trained at the time. Yeah. And I went into Gary and I asked him, I go, Gary, I just saw an AI bot write an email better, faster, and more personalized than I ever could. I go, where does that leave us as humans? Like what? And he goes, don't worry about the AI. You're not going to beat it. He goes, but be the last mile. I was like, what? He goes, let it do all the heavy lifting. Let it do the research, let it write the email, but right before you hit send, please make sure you humanize it. And that's to me what you were talking about. Yeah. Like any AI bot, like I'm sure you've seen it, right? You could take a long form content, throw it in a little AI bot, cuts all these little cool shorts up and does all this stuff. But
what are your thoughts on that piece though? So when we hosted our annual conference last year, I showed them a clip that was generated of myself from the studio at SiriusXM. And I was like, which one's real and which one's not, basically. And they're like, oh, that one's, I was like, I think it looked fairly similar. I would try not to have like too much emotion on the clips. I was like, they're like, oh, that one's just boring. I'm like, that's actually me. I was trying not to be like animated like I normally was. I was like, I'm gonna try to trick them, right? And I was like, thanks, but not thanks. But we see a lot of people like some people like creating these experiences like similar to like being in a studio like this, and their clients will come out and they will create their AI self, right? Like, do you believe that it's going to be a popular method coming up more so of like people? I know some people are still skeptical of it, or do you think people are going to jump on that train to create their AI clone to create more for sales pages, marketing videos, even if maybe there's a description like this is not like a real person, like if they're like genuine about it, like, hey, this is actually created for this purpose. Like, do you think it's something that will catch on more? Well, I see it in certain people's groups and communities doing it a little bit more.
I think 1,000%. I think we're all going to have our own personal AI friends on our phone who's going to do whatever we ask, be connected to every aspect of what we do. And so I think people, unfortunately, are going to get used to it. And we already are to a certain degree. I mean, again, I bet you that 75 to 80% of the videos last night were on those commercials were AI generated.
I know.
And the people that I was with, my friends who are a lot of contractors and they're landscapers, they're not in the tech world that I'm in. I was like, that's AI. And they're like, what? I'm I'm like, I promise you that's
they're
AI.
not in the space
because they're
as
not
much
so
as we are.
So I think if you're in it, you'll see it and it'll feel uneasy. But if you're not, you could easily get fooled by it. But on the flip side, so yes, I think it's going to proliferate almost everywhere. I think we're going to commercials, news anchors, all of it. Okay.
I think we've seen even some of them start to have their AI clone for their podcasts now.
Yeah.
So especially the solo content piece.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
For the AI and clones, I think they're cool. I was playing around with one the other day and I did a voiceover with it. And the only thing is it changes your mouth structure and your teeth a little bit. And you're like, that's
something
not
off,
my tooth.
right?
But I think that's just going to be a tool to generate like more traffic and leads and then going into the sales funnel. What I'm really intrigued about is like the different campaigns, like for sales, like, and for lead generation. And so like, my background is in marketing. And so I'm curious of because you work with multiple organizations. Like, do you work with like small businesses, like 1 to 10
mostly mid-market to so enterprise, that would be, right? So, usually, I'll put it this way, companies with, 30 or above sales reps who sell B2B. Right. And mostly in the tech space, like Salesforce, LinkedIn, Box, Amazon, Google, Okta, all those clients. I've worked with all those sales training, those organizations to train their sales teams, but it's mostly B2B sales. Even though I am a small business owner and I, sell all my own stuff and I do all my own things, it's kind of that mid-market is the sweet spot.
Yeah. And so there's different like softwares that they're using for like the lead capture and then the sales. I know there's like an auto dialer too, where it can just like quickly like dial the phone number. Like, what are some tools that you see that are working really well?
AI or not.
I mean, look, sales right now is brutal. I think the profession of sales is, especially outbounds right now, it's still the number one thing I teach. It is the hardest thing to do. And because everybody's chasing all these automation tools, but the AI is no better, in my opinion, than the cadence tools that we had in the past, the sales lofts, the outreaches, the tools that you can kind of send emails at scale, personalization at scale, right? I think what we've done to the sales process, unfortunately, is with the, again, going back to Salesforce, they created this predictable revenue model that was all about the segmentation of roles, right? Because when I was growing up in sales, I was sales. I had to prospect, I had to meet, I had to negotiate, I had to close, like I was full cycle sales. And back then it was a lot harder to stay in sales because it was very hard to juggle all those things. And then Salesforce came out and segmented those roles. So it was like, okay, you have an inbound rep, a rep that only takes inbound calls. Then you graduate to an outbound rep and you only make cold calls or set up meetings. And then you become an AE, an account executive that, now you close deals. But so it's like all this segmentation. And I think that really slowed down the progression of most sales reps because they looked at prospecting as something that they just had to get through. And so we over automated the entire process, right? We taught these kids, my keynote right now is called Age of the Agile Sales Org. And I position 2010 to 2022 as the golden age of sales, especially in tech sales. Like if you got into tech sales after 2010, sorry, haven't been that hard. We've been able to get away with blasting out template emails to anybody, like setting up disco calls to anybody with a pulse, asking dumbass BANT questions, droning through demos and offering massive discounts. Like that was sales when interest rates were, money was free, grow at all costs, nobody cared. But then 23 hit. The tech industry took a pretty big hit, right? And I was there. I went from 6 million to 0 in 2 months. I had 20 employees, 6 million in revenue, but I'm not an MRR company. I'm not an ARR company. I'm a professional services company. And all my clients had money with Silicon Valley Bank, right? And so I all went to 0. And that was like a wake up call, I think, for the entire industry of, oh my God, now I think we have this whole generation of sales professionals that don't know how to sell. And so what works right now is I actually think most outbounds campaigns have to be seen as marketing. Because if you look at a kid who's going to make cold calls and get a 2% conversion ratio on a meeting, I think about that. They have to make at least 100 phone calls to get like 2 meetings these days.
Exactly.
Those meetings then need to be qualified. Then they need to go through discovery. Then they need to be proposed. Then you need to go up against the competition. Like your conversion ratio through that chain is brutal. So if you look at it as a sales function where you're going to teach, like pay commissions for somebody just to
jumping through hoops,
make a bunch of cold calls and push buttons on a cadence tool or write a better crappy AI email, I don't get it. I actually think we should all shift to a GTM model because if you think of every sales role in go-to-market, you have RevOps, well, the main ones, right? Marketing, sales, and RevOps. Marketing's the only one you can get your degree in. I got my degree in marketing. I don't know about you. When I graduated with my degree and got out into the real world, none of what I learned, none of it.
Yeah.
None of it was relevant. I was like, what is this? I'm like, this is totally complete. Like, I might as well have taken Chinese while I was like, this is not anything. And in sales, you're finally starting to see sales degrees in colleges, right? RevOps, colleges don't even know what RevOps is.
My brother's wife is RevOps. And when she told us what she did, we're like, I'm not even sure what this was. I was like, what is this role?
So they're all learn on the job roles, basically. Yeah. And why have to force a function of a kid figuring that out at 22 years old? I think we should all be, I call it a GTM generalist role and then a GTM specialist role. Where your first year, you're a GTM generalist. You like, there's a full cycle sales rep that you're a support person for, but you spend a day with RevOps, a day with marketing, a day with sales, a day with customers, right? And you figure out the business, right? Because when I grew up in sales, like my first real sales job was Xerox. And when I went through an 8-week sales training program, and then there was an apprenticeship model. Then, like, I didn't become a full cycle sales rep until 6 months into my job at Xerox. But by then I was educated not just on the product and the pitch that I had to do, but the business, the finances, the marketing side of the house. So from a business acumen standpoint, I was able to hold my own when I got out into the real world when it came to sales. Business acumen is sorely lacking these days. All you hear is scripted questions. All you hear is scripted pitches. And when you try to pull one of those kids out of the matrix.
I remember that back in the gym industry, like 20 years ago, I sell gym memberships. Everything's like, this is the script. I'm like, this doesn't feel right.
No. And look, I used to hate scripts so much, but I do appreciate them for one reason, in the sense that when you don't know what you don't know, you need something, right? But then very soon thereafter, if you don't make it your own, what's the point?
Yeah.
Because I can have an AI robot now call that exact script and do it better than you.
Exactly.
So if you're not a human, what's the point?
Yeah.
And I call it the one thing I believe that AI can't do is care.
That's what, in our company, like all the conversations that are happening with the humans, even myself, like they're always like, I can tell how much you care. The passion, the care. And then they're like, we've had people that come back to us based on competitors, which is, I'm super grateful for that, because we had a client, a very high-end client, come to us in December, and we were super grateful. And they literally said they interviewed 10 different agencies, and they came back and they said they could tell how much we cared. And they were like, we had our top people recommended these people because they know, like, and trust them. They didn't know us, like they didn't have to trust us, but like everything that we said, from results, the connections, the word care came up like over and over on like that and other conversations. We had a doctor, like we work with a lot of med spas, and we had this gentleman come to us and he said the same thing. He's like, I could go over here to this specific platform that only works with doctors. He said, I chose you because I could tell how much you care. Like, and I know he was talking about how passionate I was because I had the conversation with them. But I mean, that always makes me feel good. I'm like, we do care. And then when we infuse that, because everybody on our team also cares. Like, we want to make sure that not just the sales and the communicators and the producers and like everybody that has their specific role within the company, they all care about their skill, right? They want to make sure that everything's high quality and the best. I think that's just one of the things that AI will not ever like come in and be like, I care, but it's like,
but it can't.
It can't.
It fundamentally can't.
It's not like, yes, I'm passionate. No, you're not. No, you're like not. You didn't build it from the ground up. Right. You didn't have the grit or the, you know, the different sides of the scaling and the failing and things like that. So whenever you can connect those stories behind the scenes also, it wins every time. And that's what I love about that piece of the sales process is the human interaction that actually shows that you can care. Yeah. So, but
and it's across the board. You know what I mean? Like, people can tell.
Yeah.
When you I had a rep working for me and he was really good at, he was an SDR, sales development rep, and I sales SDR manager. And when he came working with me, he had done, cadences and all his messaging, and we worked it all out, and he was good. And he got his results up to a pretty decent, but then they leveled off, and he come to me and he goes, after a while, he goes, John, he's like, I feel like I'm doing all the right things. It's just not, I'm not getting the results that I expect. And I go, Morgan, he's like, what do I need to change? Right. And I go, Morgan, your results aren't going to change until one thing does, man. And he goes, what? I go, until you start giving a shit. Excuse me. But I'm like, until you start caring. And he goes, what? I go, look, I know you care about your job. I know you care about working, but until you start thinking about that person that you're sending an email to as a person, not a number you have to hit, not a cadence you have to send, not a checkbox that you have to, like, until you start thinking about the person that wakes up in the morning, has kids that they have to get to the school, sits in traffic, has a boss yelling at them, and has problems that are not all about you and what you're selling them.
Well, because it's about them.
That's about them. That's why we were talking earlier. Like, sales is about the transfer of enthusiasm. If you believe in what you sell, that's why I think the number one thing you need to be successful in sales is a belief in what you do. If you do not believe in what you do, go find something else to do, because you are the ones that are giving all sales reps a bad name if you're just in it for a commission check. But once you believe, it's about transferring that enthusiasm.
Exactly.
And that, you can feel that. You can feel that in a message. You can feel that in an email. Like, you could write the most personalized AI email in the world. And there's still, and I always say there's just, I can still tell. And I can't tell you why. It's just like, well, the only thing I can say is that it just doesn't have a soul. There's something about it that doesn't have a soul. Those AI videos last night didn't have a soul.
I've had clients that have come back to us over the years. They're like, there's an email that you wrote me in 2015. I knew that we had to work with you. She was like, the way that you, one gal, she always talks about it. She's always like, she literally was like, you literally like, she's like, I always tell people about this email because the way you approached, the way you gave value, the way you showed you cared, the authenticity in like the way I read it was like, I know I need to respond to this woman. And that's the way I do a lot of different outreaches to build relationships with people in general. And I think that's, like I said, it's one of the biggest things there. I'd love to, well, when I'm in Boston next, we're going to have to do like a part 2 to this.
Let's do it.
But that's it for this episode. But I'd love for you just to connect and share with the audience a little bit how they can reach you and a little bit more about what you're up to right now.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So the best place to get in touch with me is my website, jbarrows.com. So letter J, BARROWS.com. You'll find my YouTube channel there, my podcast there. I have a ton of free content. And then I also have an on-demand membership that has all my stuff in video content. So this is where, you know, all the companies like Salesforce, LinkedIn, Box, all those companies who I've trained, I've taken all that and put it on demand for small businesses, solopreneurs. I'm personally a solopreneur myself, so I prospect every day. I negotiate all my own contracts. I do all my own customer success stuff, and I run my business, and I fly around the world doing trainings. So figuring out founder-led sales is a big part of also what I've built here, and really just trying to do my best to level up the profession here, because I do think it's in trouble. I do think that the value of the traditional sales rep right now is being questioned a lot. But I think the right sales reps are going to be invaluable moving forward. You know, I think there's a quick stat that I'll throw out there that Gartner came out with, that they interviewed Gen Xers, Boomers, and Millennials, and they said on average, 43% want a rep-free experience. 43% of buyers of complex B2B solutions want a rep-free experience. They don't want us involved, because of all the crap that we try to put them through. But that's the negative. The positive is that of the 43% that wanted a rep-free experience, they had a 23% higher regret rate. So they regretted the decision more when a real sales professional wasn't involved. And so to me, that tells me there's a lot of room for us to add value. It's just different than ever has been before. And so I'm trying to teach us how to get back to the basics, back to fundamentals, because I think we've skipped them, but also figure out how to leverage this AI so we don't get replaced by it. Because the future of sales is genuinely going to be Iron Man, Iron Woman. You know, if you think the human, the tech, and the AI, that's what this world is going to be in. And for those of us that are willing to be curious and humble enough to realize that we don't know and focus on the EQ side of the house over the IQ side of the house, I think the world is going to be very optimistic. For everybody else, we'll see.
Well, thank you, John, for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me in.
And those that are watching, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Broadcast Your Authority. If you're listening to audio podcasts, be sure to leave a review on Apple or Spotify, and we'll see you in the next episode.